January 8th, 2020. Please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we've got 2 items of old business on the agenda, and I will jump right to those. First is the approval of the police chief's contract. It's been out for a little while. It's been back and forth between us and the police chief. Town council has reviewed it and made some minor edits. I know the contract's acceptable to the chief. I met with the chief and reviewed the final form of the document, so I think all that's left is for us to vote to accept the contract and to sign it tonight. Is there a motion to that effect, or anybody have any questions about the document?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the employment contract between the town of Acushnet and Chief Chris Richmond as presented by town council with the changes town council made.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
There's just one comment from town council that checked with the town clerk, see if to confirm general laws 41, section 97 has been adopted by the town, so I don't know if that's been done yet, so.
I spoke with
Pending that.
Ms. Hebert yesterday afternoon, and pointed to that same reference. She had a call into the town clerk. I'm assuming that's been resolved, but it was absolutely something I pointed to as well, and I know she'd reached out to the town clerk to try to confirm that. So I will, could you make sure that that happens? And I'm sure I will mention it to her as well. But yeah, that's absolutely important. I saw that as well. So we will make sure, and we shouldn't be referencing a law the town hasn't adopted, so one way or another, we'll get that resolved.
Just
Yeah.
to help the board, Chapter 41, Section 97 is a provision of the statute. 41 is the so-called municipal finance law, 40 and 41. These are, 97 is an enabling statute.
Okay.
You don't have to adopt it in order to do things under it.
Okay. Town council has asked us to confirm whether or not we've adopted it, though. So that's,
Really?
yeah. So we're getting from town council saying,
Okay.
It's a side note by town council and my
Most town
draft.
manager contracts are done under
Yeah.
41, 40N.
Is
That does
that-
not require adoption by the town, but you're allowed to. But I would certainly defer to the lawyer.
yeah, that's the only reason we're, I looked at,
No legal degree.
there were a lot of references to various, sections, and that's why we sent town council, let's make sure these are all relevant, and he did come back with that, to confirm that the town has indeed adopted that, so.
Okay, learn something new every day.
So we're, all in favor? Aye, all right, and we will sign that tonight, and we will confirm that's an appropriate reference.
4197.
Second old business, town administrator discussion. As the board is aware, we made we indicated to Mr. Ron Sanangelo, after interviewing 4 finalists, we made an offer of employment to Ron Sanangelo to be our town administrator. After a couple of meetings with Mr. Sanangelo, we could not come to agreement over the terms of his employment with the town of Acushnet, with the terms of his contract with the town of Acushnet, and Mr. Sanangelo decided to withdraw his name from consideration as our town administrator. So we are back to the drawing board. We, as a community, Julie Hebert is our acting town administrator, but that is a position that we need to fill on a permanent basis, obviously, and that's the principal reason that we are here tonight. So when we met last time, Mr. Pecos gave us 4 options for moving forward, and I'll just run through those options. I made notes based on your comments, that we move forward with one of the other candidates. The town screening committee gave us 5 names. One of those names withdrew from consideration before, and Mr. St. Jean's here. Mr. St. Jean's chairman of the finance committee, sat on the screening committee, gave us 5 names. 1 withdrew before the interview process. We interviewed 4 of the candidates. We made an offer to one of the candidates, as I said, Mr. Sanangelo. He's withdrawn, but there are still 3 names. that we have interviewed that were recommended to us by the screening committee that are viable candidates. So that's option one, go back to one of those three. Option two, re-advertise the position. It would have to be a quick re-advertisement. You know, we need to move this. I feel like the process has moved quickly, but it should be done by now and it's not. So we really need to accelerate this thing. Go back to the screening committee and ask that they give us another candidate. Go back to the screening committee and say, you gave us 5 names, you certainly talked to more than 5 people. Is there anybody that was, 5's enough to refer to us, but is there a 6, 7, or 8 that maybe didn't make the top 5 because you only wanted to give us 5 that is a strong candidate that we should consider? Mr. Pecos and I earlier today talked about something that I think should be an option 5 would be, and I've got one other to go circle back to, is to reach out to, there are a couple of people that he knows that are good town administrators that could be available to us. Reach out directly to those individuals and find out whether they're interested in talking to them. Certainly screen resumes, certainly interview them, but reach out to people directly, bring them in, talk to them. And
Those are people who were not available 3 months ago.
who were not available 3 months ago that now are potentially available.
Yes.
And obviously, they need to decide whether or not they want to talk to the town of Acushnet. So there's that. And sort of the fifth option was, we talked about, potentially a mentor arrangement with, Julie Hebert as our interim town administrator, moving Julie to a town administrator trainee or an assistant town administrator, and bringing somebody in on a short-term basis to support her because she's new to the job, she's inexperienced, and to support her in that role. So, I mean, we've got a lot of options. I'd like to move forward as quickly as possible with one of those options. I think we really, coming into budget season, Ms. Hebert's both our interim town administrator and our chief financial officer, and coming into budget season, I'm not sure it's possible to do both of those jobs within the constraints of a 24-hour day. So, we need to provide her with some relief and move this forward quickly. So, those things said, I've got comments I want to make, but I'll go to you first to find out what you're all thinking. Mr. Pecos, anything to add to that?
That's a great summary.
Okay. Gentlemen, anything?
I'll leave it open for anybody else to discuss first.
Well, I started last time, so I might as well start again.
Go.
Okay, so you presented us with 5 alternatives to where we're at right now. Everybody's familiar with the process, how it all developed, so I don't have to go over that again.
Yep.
Mr. Pecos, I have a question. If you look at going in a different direction, trying to re-advertise, go back to the screening committee, reach out again to people who weren't available 3 months ago, how long do you think the process is going to take us from this point?
Well-
and I'm not holding you to an exact day.
Sure.
Or
I think of those three, there's 3 different components there. So if you were to reach out to the screening committee, I think it was 9 people. It would probably take a couple of weeks to convene them because, they're all very responsible, busy people. And it would probably take a couple of weeks to convene them. And I'm very confident that they would be able to return to you 2 or 3 more names in one meeting, because I know the relative order of who they interviewed and what they felt, and I'm sure they would come up with 2 or 3 right away. The second subset of that, were you to formally advertise, I would say, because the Beacon has an electronic component as well as a written, and you can just advertise in the electronic component. The people that are looking look at it a lot, because a new job can get posted every day. So you could advertise on the Beacon, you could have it there as soon as Friday, and you could have as quick a turnaround for resumes as you would like. In this case, I would suggest you have them posted electronically, sent to you by email, because that's going to be much faster than first-class mail. And so by end of next week, you could probably have however many new resumes you're going to get, you'll get them, I would say, by the end of next week.
Right, do we set a limit on how long they have to apply? I mean, if they look online, do we give them 2 weeks,
I
3
always-
weeks to come back?
I
or
always
is it
recommend
something
keeping
that
it open
you
and
can do
rolling,
that.
because open and rolling means until you fill it, it's open. So if somebody comes along who's available the week after next, who wasn't available because they got bad news from their board, all of a sudden they're a candidate and they know that they can still apply. Lots of towns have been burnt by deadlines when somebody very good comes along and they miss the deadline, and now the board can't consider that candidate, and that's a shame. Third option, which is do it by word of mouth, i.e. I call people that I know are now available. That can happen, well, I'll be candid with you. I've already reached out to them, and they are standing by. So if it were the will of the board to basis, i.e. You were to say,
We come in for an
Kevin,
interview.
call those people,
Right.
get the resumes in here, let us look at the resumes, decide if we want to interview them. You could probably do that within a 2 or 3 day time period and be interviewing them next week. I will tell you, I would not recommend any of these people unless they were actual town administrators with lengthy experience. Anybody else, I think people who lack long-term experience or might have good qualifications but not the whole package, I think those kinds of folks need to go to the screening committee to be looked at, to take the longer process. But people who've been town administrators for 20 or 25 years, I think they're a safe bet for you to look at directly. If it were the will of the board to have the screening committee look at them first, then again, you'd be adding a couple-week component to the process, so.
Can I ask a question based on your question, Mr.
Yes.
DeRoche?
Mhm.
Or you want to continue?
Oh, no.
It's based on your question. So, Mr. DeRoche asked that question. It's an interesting question because you say you have a couple of candidates that are extremely qualified, i.e. Real experience in town administrator's job. The reason why we formed a screening committee was due to the fact that once the Board of Selectmen, it's to my understanding anyway, Mr. Pecos, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did that process because by law, I think it was the Attorney General that commented on this, once the Board of Selectmen look at the resumes, that's automatically made public.
Right.
And some candidates, that could be detrimental to their career wherever they may be, right? If
Correct.
they're not being considered. So we opt to go with a screening committee
Right.
to try to bypass that process, so we wouldn't be putting anybody in harm's
So
way
when you're
by
doing,
applying.
right, when you're doing a general advertisement, and people know they're applying, and they're not yet finalists, they're gonna be semi-finalists. So there's a lot of distance to cross before they can say, I'm a viable candidate. Generally, they don't want their name out there.
Okay.
So once they become finalists, and consistent with the AG's ruling, they agree, okay, I'm gonna risk having my name public. So the screening committee offers the opportunity to do two things. One, avoid that problem. And secondly, give you some indication from prominent members of the community how they think these people fit.
Sure.
So that's a big advantage.
Sure.
In the situation you're in now, it would be up to the board's decision to decide, and these two people were not available 3 months ago, they're now available. So there's three actually that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty in touch with the town manager community. So they're all very experienced people. And if they decided they wanted to interview, the board could do one of two things. You could either interview them directly, or you could have the screening committee meet them first, whatever your preference.
My question, just to make sure.
But they're all ready to be public, by the way.
That's my question,
Yes.
is if they're in or out of town administrator positions, if the board wanted to move more quickly, and you felt, based on your 40-plus years' experience as a town administrator and doing this job for the town of Acushnet, if the board felt that that was the path that we want to take, if they would be open to having their names public right away so that the board could look at these resumes just
Two
like that.
two of the three have already been finalists elsewhere. I mean, they've moved that fast. These are very talented people. So their name is already public. The third gentleman has not yet been he's been a candidate, but he has not yet been a finalist, and so he would have to give permission to be publicly interviewed and be a quote-unquote finalist.
But you could reach out to them without disclosing their names to us, in which case it wouldn't be public?
That's correct. They would first have to agree
Yep.
that they would, because once they're referred to you, if it comes to the board directly, they're public.
Right,
The minute
that's
you
what, that's
get
the point I'm
resume,
trying to
they're
make. So
public.
2 out of the 3 are ready to be shot right into the
Right.
Board of
And they don't
Selectmen per se.
They don't even necessarily become public when they're interviewed. They become public the minute they gave the Board of Selectmen directly their resume, because that resume becomes a public document.
Sure.
So they'd have to agree to that.
Okay, thank you.
But 2 out of the 3 are already there, 1 isn't.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, let me just, I've thought about all these options since Friday when we received the letter. And and I've looked at the end games of each one. What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to get to? We've been tasked with getting a town administrator, a manager of the town, someone who works under our direction. And my initial, and I keep coming back to it, is the first option with the other 3 candidates, going back there and looking at them. Now, the difficult part, or the interesting part with the other 3 candidates, 2 of them have absolutely no experience, and 1 comes with 40 years' experience. And I've gone back and forth. I went through this process. I made my selection. I picked the candidate who came in first from the screening committee, and I was on board with that. And at that time, I mentioned my second candidate, and I feel, as Mr. Cabral mentioned, that this process needs to keep going forward, and I believe that one of the candidates remaining is qualified to do the job.
Is there one, are you saying we should look at those 3, or is there one of the 3?
Well, I'm saying that's the option
Okay,
I've considered and decided to go down.
okay.
I believe going back again, we're looking at a couple months. We're in the budget season, and not that I'm stressing a sense of urgency to get this completed. I feel that right now, we have a candidate that can do the job for us, the job that we need to have done at this time. We were presented this candidate by the search committee. I was told any one of these 4 candidates would be fine for the job. And I take their recommendations, plus my own personal feelings of the candidate. And the candidate is Julie Ebert, the interim town manager here at, town administrator here in Acushnet. And we can debate the process back and forth. The biggest comments I've heard is she has absolutely no experience whatsoever. And that is a true statement. She has no experience as a town administrator. And when I look at the resumes from all the candidates, somewhere at the beginning, none of them have experience as town administrators. They're all doing another job. And at some point, the opportunity arises and the candidate appears that take the chance. I feel confident taking the chance. It could be the biggest mistake I make in my young political life, but
It's good you
the
added the word
contract,
political. All right.
the contract does have a 6-month probationary period to it, and we still are in charge. She is under our direction. And if things go awry through the years, we can get rid of her as easily as we hired her. At least that's my opinion.
Can I go next and take off from there? Or, I don't want to cut you off, but Mr. DeRoche?
No, I gave my
So,
opinion.
I mean, we were unanimous in choosing Mr. San Angelo as a group. We were unanimous. I mean, he was not my first choice. He was my second choice. But, you know, at the end of it, we were unanimous in making that decision. And the two of you felt strongly that he was the best candidate. And I, you know, while he wasn't my first choice, I agreed that he was a great candidate for the town of Acushnet and supported the decision to hire him. Absolutely. Julie Hebert was my first choice as the town administrator. And, you know, I respecting the work the screening committee did, they put that group forward as people we should consider. And I, you know, supported Julie then, I support her now. You know, I think if there's going to be a criticism of that choice, it's going to be that she doesn't have experience as a town administrator. So perhaps if we decide to go this way, perhaps we could, and Mr. Pecos and I discussed this as we discussed the options, finding a way to support her as a town administrator learning the job. As Mr. Pecos, part of our arrangement with Mr. Pecos has been, you know, he's, I forgot the name of the show where you can make a phone call. It was a television show. We had a safety net, or you know, if she wanted
phone a friend.
Yeah, phone a friend or whatever. that if she needed support, she can call Mr. Pecos. That if we've got some concern about her inexperience, we could potentially do something along those lines. And had considered early on potentially doing that with Mr. Healy, and you know, then I think that went away when Mr. San Angelo became our candidate. But that's certainly a possibility that we you know, move forward with Julie as our town administrator and find some way to support her in that role, either with someone else as calling somebody else town administrator for a period of time, with her the assistant moving into the full job, or taking a chance with her as a town administrator from day one. I mean, I'll throw both of those options out to the body as an option we should consider. I'm very comfortable with Julie. I'm very impressed by Julie as the town CFO, in working with her, and saw the work again she did to get our bond rating up, and you know, was on that conference and just so impressed with her representation of our town to an independent bond. I think it was Standard & Poor's or Moody's or one of the rating agencies. So impressed with the way she represented our community to Standard & Poor's, and just had an answer to every question, and obviously had done her homework. And you know, I learned through this process that she's not a finance professional; she's a lawyer, and I think she could grow into the TA job very, very quickly. But my comments.
Well, I just asked what your reservations are, mentioning having some intermediary.
Thinking out loud. I would be willing to take the chance. I would be willing to take the chance on Julie as the TA without support. But I'm just thinking if there are objections to that, that would be the objection, that she doesn't have the experience in the job.
Oh,
So I'm thinking out loud through the scenario. If you know, if there's an objection to her in that role because of her lack of experience, how do we solve that problem? Is there a way to solve that problem? If it's perceived to be a problem, and that could be the solution to get her support somehow. We had talked about Mr. Healy would fill that role well. You'd mentioned when we spoke last that there are some other folks that potentially could fill that role if we want to do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Gasper, go.
I hear everything members of the board are saying, and I'm not in a rush. I've been through this rodeo once before, and it was devastating when we lost town administrator, finance director, assistant town accountant. You know, I think that in this position, it does take a certain level of experience, managing people, contract negotiations, infrastructure experience, and the candidate. I'd rather talk about the position so much the candidate, but you guys came forward and mentioned the candidate, so it kind of tough not to talk about that. I'm gonna do my best to talk about the position. And we know that the lack of experience is there for that candidate. I spoke in the first round for my respect for the second candidate, how well of a job she does as the town accountant. Okay? That's her forte. She admits it in her open letter, cover letter, in her resume and everything else. I think the town of Acushnet is the kind of town that needs someone with experience, given what we have to work with, contract negotiations and things of that nature. I've done this for a little bit. I've never, in the last town administrator, we brought in town council to negotiate contracts. That's something that I've never done before. I've always done it alongside of the town administrator, and we've done it very successfully. We spent a lot of money doing it, and I look back and I say, why did we have to spend this money to do this? I'll say it publicly to the taxpayers of Acushnet. I think it was a little bit of a waste of money. I didn't feel the need for it. I just feel that this town is not a small town that can accept somebody at this point at where we are with infrastructure, the quarry, all the issues that we got going on. I just feel that we need somebody with experience, and I respect the board's opinion. I have the same confidence in her as you do as Director of Finance. I truly do, and I've spoken very highly of her in that position. I think that Mr. Pecos has offered the board an alternative where he knows now that there's a couple of candidates that are sitting out there with, did you say 20 plus years experience? Or
Yes.
that are open for, the job and could probably expedite this. And I think that, I feel that the board should look at these candidates if we want to bypass the screening committee, if time is of the essence, no matter where we end up. If the board were to go with Julie, which I do not believe I'm in that position tonight, I think we need to expedite it and say, don't go through the screening committee. Mr. Pecos tells me and told the board just now, 2 out of the 3, perhaps the third would be willing to say, okay, I'm public now in a week's time frame, 5 days, 3 days, whatever it may be. He can make that phone call tonight, say, get your resumes into the Board of Selectmen, let us look at the resumes. If the board looks at the resumes, we come to a conclusion, we call Mr. Pecos and say, I'm not interested in any 1-3 candidates, you're not interested in any 1-3 candidates, Mr. DeRoche's not interested in any 1-3 candidates. At that point, we're here. If you want to re-advertise and open up to a bigger pool of people, I'm okay with that. I lost sleep over this last night because I had a feeling that, based on previous discussions, that this is the way it was going to go, and it's not that I'm trying to speak badly about anybody, and I hope that when the individual watches this, that's not what I'm trying to do. I just don't think that the town of Acushnet should pay a premium rate for an inexperienced town administrator.
Well, how many candidates did the screening committee talk to? How many candidates, how many resumes did we get?
23, I think.
It was in the 20,
I
about
could be-
20%.
Yeah. it could
So
be
some of
right.
them will probably just, why they go out, right? mean,
I would say when the screening committee scored them, screening committee scored about 10 that were clearly unqualified.
All right, so we had 13 resumes for the position,
Yeah, about
13 qualified people for the position.
Mr. Pecos, he set, I spoke to Mr. Dakin, and he set a pretty high bar to pass
Was.
those candidates on to the Board of Selectmen. So, after speaking with Mr. Dakin, I think that if we were looking for somebody with no experience, I think there would have been other candidates in the pool. Mr. Pecos might be able to say yes or no.
Oh, yeah, sure, because there was a variety of folks who had different kinds of qualifications that were
But
interesting.
not town
But
government.
they had not been town administrators. And the committee made a fairly early decision that if they had not been actual town administrators or CFOs, that they wouldn't be considered any further.
I mean, when we're talking about Julie, we're not talking about someone that's inexperienced. We're talking about somebody that's been our town CFO for most of the last
3 years.
3 years.
I'm not, she's not applying for town accountant. She's applying for the
No, I
town
know- I know
administrator.
that. No, I
So
know
I'm
that. I know.
I'm looking at it, I've been through the rodeo with contract negotiations, I know how difficult
Yeah, so I.
some unions can be, as you do, because you've dealt with that. Mr. DeRoche hasn't yet, and it could be extremely aggravating, and when you have somebody on the side of you that has those years of experience negotiating contracts, it's that much more helpful.
But our last town administrator was very experienced and felt, you know, and brought in town council.
And I just said why.
Mr. DeRoche.
Just for the record, I have been involved in 2 contract
Yeah,
negotiations.
yeah.
I have been with the dispatchers union. Ms. Hebert and I attended the meetings and came up with a successful contract, as well as I've been involved in the police contract, the police chief contract that's sitting here right in front of me. So I understand I am the new guy, and myself, I
And the
have.
town administrator, and the negotiations we just had with the town administrator. as well.
And okay.
Yeah, it was,
Let's forget that one. Let's not forget that one, I mean.
It's not- But that was it, right? It's-
But, you know, I don't have a lot of experience at this job, but you know I'm along the way.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful,
No,
Mr.
you're-
DeRoche,
and
I'm
you're
not.
not.
I'm just-
And I respect
I'm
all your
just-
comments,
I'm just
Mr.
pointing-
Gaspar.
I
I truly do.
understand that,
I
and
truly do, because it is a concern that people around town are looking at. That, and it is a concern. And it's one that I had to weigh heavily back and forth on. It truly was. You know, we got the first pick, then, okay, I did it. You know, we made a decision, it all worked, but that didn't pan out.
And we
Now I have to look
engaged
at, you know, at other options.
we engaged a screening committee and said, hey, screening committee, reach out into the world and give us.
And I was given these
who was the
names
ranking?
by the
How did
screening
Julie
committee.
rank and the.
You know, and it doesn't matter, you know.
Well,
I'm not,
again,
you know.
I'm somewhat hesitant to
Okay. That's fine.
get into
It doesn't, she
the...
made the top 4, so.
She made the top 5, yeah. she
Yes.
made the top
Okay.
five. Okay.
And I told the committee at the time that I would not
Okay, because Mr. Dakin had
say what the
said, told us
specific,
what number
because
1 was, yeah.
the concern was that we would box the board in by revealing it. What I will say is that Julie scored very high.
Okay.
You know, I look at her 5 months being here. I weigh out her dealing with the other department heads. You know, you're not going to get along with everybody, but I haven't really heard, you know, issues arising from her doing her job as the interim town administrator. You know, does she need, will she gain experience on the job? Yes. Will she make mistakes? More than likely, we all do. But she is a strong enough candidate with her background, with her law degree in muni law, and with her, right now, we're looking at the budget ahead of us the next 6 months with the town meeting at the end of it. And Julie's been through the process. She knows the players. She's involved here in town. She knows the phone calls to make. When you bring up concerns that, well, she might get in a box and she doesn't know what to do, well, remember who she's working for. She's working for this board. I mean, we have experience here in the finance committee, 18 years between you, and the number of years, we have here. I mean, you talk about mentors. I mean, are we not going to be playing a part in that role? As she goes on, so, it's like.
I don't know if I want to be training somebody
Well,
at a prime rate. So if you're gonna bring somebody in with the former town administrator leaves at 128, and you're gonna take somebody with no years' experience and pay 128, why not try to find somebody with experience?
We haven't talked salary.
No, I
Salary's
understand.
the next
I
step.
understand, but-
It's next step.
Well, no, I understand the price we're paying her, and
And you're gonna lose a town accountant, you're gonna have to do the hiring position for that. I can tell you how that's already gonna go, but I
Well,
won't.
we have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yep, so we didn't get anywhere, because you're back looking for a town accountant while you're in the budget process, which could be even more disturbing. And if you don't find the right candidate, she might be upstairs babysitting that, and you're in the same position that we are now,
Well, I
juggling two
mean,
positions.
either.
We might be. I mean, that
either
is a
way.
concern. I accept that, and respect your comments about this. But, I've been given a task to make a decision.
And we can't-
collectively and independently.
I mean, the one comment I'd make to that, Mr. Gasper, I mean, it's, you know, yeah, we hire a town administrator, now we need a CFO. But I think it would be unfair to say we can't move someone from CFO to town accountant because it creates a vacancy in the town. I think that's not fair to the candidate to say, you're very good at what you do, you're very good at what you do.
I would agree if you had experience.
You
That's
made
all
that
I'm saying.
comment, that was a comment of mine in the first round.
You're just putting us in the same box, just different position, that's all I'm saying. I think that's, I don't know, I don't think that's gonna work out, but that's fine. If the board feels like that's what they wanna do, that's fine. It's not something that I'm agreeable to tonight, and I'll live with that.
Can I just actually say something?
Go, please.
I've been working with Julie now as the interim town administrator. She's been doing a very excellent job, and she has come full, like she knows the town. She's already been here for 3 years. She knows the town, she knows the finances. She's been excellent with the department heads. Every Tuesday they have the department head meetings. She, been looking for grants. She's been really taking over, and
I know.
it's been helpful, at least we have somebody here right now. The last time we lost our town administrator and finance director, there was nobody here. So it was a
Can't
tough,
imagine what that
it
was
was a
like.
little tough going.
Can't imagine.
I'll tell you what it was like. But anyways, look, it's not like that. It's not personal between me and Julie, and I don't want to construe it that
And
way.
I
I just don't think
wouldn't
that we're
take it that
making, I'm not making that decision, so I'm all right. I'm all right, the board, with its decision, if that's the motion that wants to be put on here, and I'm fine with that. I just think that if Mr. Pecos is confident he's got other qualified candidates, look, I don't think, long-term, I don't think that this is going to work out. I mean, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and
Well, let me,
whatever it comes down to, it comes down to.
If in the first 6 months, we were like, holy mackerel, what did we do?
what did we do?
What did we do?
Yeah.
There's a clause right in the option, I mean, there's a
Yeah, and that would be
clause right in the
important.
contract
Yep.
that, she's out. And don't we give yearly reports on the progress of these people? And
Absolutely.
And if their scores are coming out on the lower side, well, that's definitely, I will be concerned that I've made a decision and I'm getting these
I don't
results from the
want to
appointment.
go. I don't want to go where Miss Leonard went, and she spoke favorably. And I know of
No.
other issues with other department heads that have spoken to me, and I'm not going to go down that road on this camera in front of our taxpayers or for Julie Hebert to hear. I could take that up privately with Miss Hebert, but
Mr.
I'm
Gaspar.
not basing anything off what Miss Leonard just said.
And I don't
It is
expect you
what
to,
it
but I
is
just
what it
wanted to
is.
give.
No, your opinion's
my
important, I
opinion.
appreciate it. You work with her every day, your opinion's important. Thank
And
you,
Mr.
Mrs.
Gaspar, you know as well, and you know more, probably better than I do, that the decisions that we made are criticized from the opposing side. The people who agree with us in our decisions, that's the best decision we could have made. But on the other end, you get criticized for decisions. Our job is to make a decision. It's
Yep.
not to,
And I'm trying to make one.
and I understand, right? And sometimes, as close as we work together, there arise issues that, the board can't come to a true unanimous decision on.
I just two things I want to do. First of all, Mr. St. Jean, Chairman of the Finance Committee, I mean, you've worked with Mrs. Leonard as Miss Leonard as
Miss Hebert?
Miss yes, Miss Leonard, Miss Hebert, Mr. Gasper, okay. Yeah, as Chairman of the Finance Committee, you've worked with Miss Hebert over the years. I mean, any input as to your experience with her in that role, or?
I have the utmost respect for Ms. Hebert. She's done a fantastic job. She took over in a very difficult situation. She's moved the finance department forward. She's very respectful, she's very accommodating, she's very knowledgeable. And I have some first-hand information as to her negotiating capabilities, and personally, I think she'd do an excellent job as a town administrator.
So that was just the first I wanted to go to. My second point, and
If I would have known we were doing this, we could have brought in 50 other people to ask their comments too, so.
but I didn't know we were doing this either, Mr. Gasper. I didn't. I mean, I didn't.
I'm just saying, I mean, we're
Well, let
gonna
me- let
ask
me
a
say-
couple of selective individuals that are in the room when the ultimate decision is the Board of
I know.
Selectmen. And we bring, one or two people in to ask comment. As much as I respect Mrs. St. Jean as the Finance Committee and Ms. Leonard, you know, we could bring in 50 people and 30 might say
Right.
negative things and 20 might say positive things. So
You know,
I just think it's the board's decision to make, and ultimately we're gonna make a decision.
Let me
and I'll
make my,
live with that
let me make my, I
decision.
said I had 2 points, let me make my second. So, you know, hear what you're saying. I think you've heard two members of the Board of Selectmen say, we're comfortable with Ms. Hebert in the role of town administrator. You know, when Mr. San Angelo was selected as our town administrator candidate, he wasn't my choice, and the two of you wanted him to be the town administrator, and
Oh, we chose him.
when that happened, you know,
Based
wasn't
on-
my
based on-
choice.
Based on experience, though.
But wasn't my first choice, but I didn't say, no, I don't want him, I want my choice. I said, okay, guys, I respect your opinion, and I will, let's make this vote unanimous, we want to support our new town administrator. And with everything I'm hearing you say, I get that, I'd like you to respect the opinion of the other two selectmen, and if this is the path we go down, I'd like you supporting that decision and having us endorse Ms. Hebert as our next town administrator unanimously. And I get the fact that she's not your first choice, that there might be better choices for you, but, you know, I'd like to see this for the benefit of the town of Acushnet. I'd like to see this as a unanimous decision. And coming in here tonight, I had no idea where this was going, Mr. Gaspar. I mean, I went through 5 options, and you know, you've expressed your opinion, Mr. DeRoche expressed his opinion, I waited last to express mine. We don't talk about this outside of this room. I didn't know where this was going, so.
Mr. Pecos, Mr. Pecos, what do you feel? If you were a board member and 40 years' experience, what's your opinion? I mean, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah, fair question.
Would you, I mean, you tell me that you have 2 other candidates that have great experience, weren't in the pool before. I'm just trying to find the right person to lead this town with all the hoopla and everything else, and making sure that things are being run right. And you know, I could go down the list of different things, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to be disrespectful on camera, so I'm not gonna be. But I'm aware of all the situations that most people aren't, and I just, you know, I can't.
No, but I'm not sure what you're talking about, Steve.
Right, and I don't want to talk about it publicly, but I can't honestly say from the bottom of my heart to the taxpayers of Acushnet that this is what I want to do, and I can endorse this move. I think she's a great town accountant. I don't believe at this point that she's the right town administrator for the town of Acushnet. That's all I can say. And I'm a firm believer in that. And if you guys want to do it, do it. It doesn't bother me. I'll live with the board's decision. That's all I can say.
Well, I respect your
I
opinion.
can't vote for something that I feel that strongly about. I've lost sleep over this all night. I mean, I watched snowflakes drop last night for hours, and I just can't do it.
I agree. I mean, it's definitely been a difficult decision. It's
I-
been.
Let's go to
what do we do?
Mr. Pecos. Let's go to Mr. Pecos. Mr. Pecos was asked a question, so please, Mr. Pecos, weigh in.
Let me first reassure the board that contacting other potential candidates was not in any way meant to thwart what the board would decide upon. In fact, when I spoke with each of you personally over the course of the last few days, none of you were sure at that point how you wanted to move forward on these various options you had. So, reaching out to folks, I talk to lots and lots of town administrators every day in my consulting work, and so I became aware of these 2 gentlemen, 3 actually, and for other reasons, and asked them what their level of interest was. So I don't want the board to have the impression I was trying to head off any conclusion you might reach.
No, not at all.
I just wanted to ask the question so that if the board determined tonight that you did have an interest in looking at other people, I could say to you, hey, I've got a couple for you right away. Because when I spoke with you separately, everybody mentioned you were very concerned about time and getting something to happen.
Well, that was an issue.
Right.
That was an issue.
So I took the initiative to speak with those people. I also will tell you, I've said this to you 6 times, and I truly believe it, and it's the product of lots and lots of years of experience. And remember that I sat in your seats for almost 9 years. I was a selectman in North Reading and town manager for a long time. The board is never wrong. You're elected by the people. your decisions are the right decisions by virtue of the fact that you are the people's representative. If the people don't like the decisions you make, they'll let you know at the ballot box, or they'll call you up and tell you. And Dave, you make a good point. No matter what decision you three gentlemen make, there will be proponents and opponents who will like your decisions and won't like your decisions. That's the nature of democracy. It's a beautiful thing. I'm always concerned when a three-member board makes a decision that isn't unanimous, because that always says that down the line there could be an issue because you weren't able to work to a consensus and get a final conclusion that all three of you supported.
But haven't you also said we'd only need one if we agreed every time? We'd only need one selectman.
Yes, that's right. And so it is the nature of the business you do that sometimes you make 2-to-1 decisions. In point of fact, you made one with Ron. When you offered him the position, you made a 2-to-1 decision.
No, we were unanimous.
Right. Well, you were unanimous when you
Right.
finally took the vote.
You're in the same boat I'm in right now.
Right.
But I voted with the group. We voted to appoint Ron.
So, in this case, what I would, and it's always difficult to talk about somebody that you folks know that's a real live human being that works right here for you. And there's always a degree of awkwardness in discussing both strengths and weaknesses of that person, because it's a person who's right here. It's not an abstract person kind of out there that you don't know. There is no, Julie, I think, offers many, many talents. She is very adept at the finance part of municipal government, and if there's probably 2 predominant characteristics that a good town manager has to have. Number one, they have to be skilled in dealing with people. Because frankly, it's more than half the job. And if you're not able to get along with folks, the job is taking diverse opinions and making forward progress. Subsuming your own personal feelings and taking the feelings of others, blending them and trying to make something go forward. That's the job in a nutshell. That requires extraordinary people skills. I haven't worked with Julie enough to assess that, but you have. And I think you've decided, at least some of you have decided, I don't want to speak for anybody, that she has those skills. That's important, because that's probably the single most important characteristic is that. Julie also has the financial skills, very clearly. She's an extraordinary, and I'm proud to remind the board that I'm the person who actually recommended her to Acushnet 4 years ago when I was your interim TA, and made the decision to make that recommendation with the capable help of Lisa and a few other people who were on the screening committee. So there is no shame in the fact that Julie lacks some skills also, which only a town administrator who has either been trained, i.e. by virtue of getting her master's in public administration, and has experience actually doing the job, that only that person can have. So here you have a bit of a conundrum in that you have a person who you have great confidence in with respect to the people skills, with the way she fits into the community, clearly has some staff support, if not universal staff support, really has mastered the finance part of the job, but probably has some lack of skills in certain key areas, police administration, fire administration. And that's not a criticism, that's just the reality. That is the plain reality of it. Julie has an exceptional intelligence. One of the things I noted when I interviewed her years ago was that she was exceptionally quick, very bright. She's very strong-willed. And that is a strength as a town administrator, because I will tell you, if you're not strong-willed, you better not be a town administrator, because you're going to get kicked around a lot, and you better be able to take the heat. And I think Julie will be able to take the heat pretty nicely. So having said all that, I don't think, honestly, if you had a candidate over here who had all the skills and had worked for 20 years at TA and was successful, that's if you go to a doctor, you want to have a doctor who's got lots of experience. If you go to a banker, you want a banker with lots of experience. If you go to bring your car to a mechanic, you want a mechanic with a lot of experience. You don't want a mechanic or a doctor or a banker who's got most of the experience, but not all of it. So all things being equal, the logical choice is somebody who's got the whole loaf. The fact that Julie does not have some of those skills is not, I think, necessarily a fatal flaw. If the board is confident that she has the support of the community, and this is the most important this is the most important caveat here, the board has to be absolutely content and understanding that Julie needs to learn some things. You can't teach them, with all due respect to the board. All your years of experience in the FinCom is great, and it's wonderful, and it's given you a great, very diverse background, but frankly, that doesn't make you experts in police administration, fire administration, DPW administration, water sewer issues. Town administrators are professional people.
And we've got managers in those areas.
Right.
Professional managers.
Town administrators are professional people these days. It's not like it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I started in the business and pretty much anybody could do it, and lots of anybodies were doing it. Hey, I got my start with nothing more than my experience as a selectman. I was only about halfway through my master's degree, and the town of Dover took a chance on me, and here I am 40 years later. So, I don't think by any means that Julie is not an excellent, was certainly fully supportive of her candidacy with the screening committee when they returned that verdict. And I think she could do an excellent job for you. But the board must reconcile itself to the fact that she needs to learn some things, and you need to be patient, because you will have to assist her with learning those things. It doesn't mean you're going to teach her, because you can't teach her. What it does mean is that her department heads, her professional staff, are going to have to help her. Your police chief, who is now fairly new, will have to help her. Your fire chief, who's very experienced, will have to help her. Your DPW director will have to help her. Backstopping Julie with somebody like a Jack or somebody like that, I think is a great idea. And by the way, I've already said to you, in order to maintain my professionalism and in order for you to be able to trust me, as much as I might like it, I removed myself as a candidate to do that. But giving somebody the responsibility to help her, whether it's actually having a formal relationship with them, where you pay them and you have them here a day or two a week, or whether you just have them available, that's up to you. But having Julie have professional support by a long-time experienced town manager is a great idea. I'm sure she would be very grateful.
Put somebody on a retainage type basis?
Somebody on a retainer. I'm sure Julie would be very, very pleased to have that support, because if she had the ability to call somebody and say, look, I'm about to sit down and do a collective bargaining process here, and I'm concerned that if I do this, I might violate Chapter 150E and end up with prohibited practice charges. Is what I'm about to do a prohibited practice? Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, what the hell's all that mean? Well, what all that means, and the reason I'm saying it, is because you don't know what it means. But a town administrator had better know what it means. Because if the town administrator does commit a prohibited practice, then you're going to get charges filed against you with the Labor Relations Commission or the Dunlop Commission. And you're going to pay your lawyer a lot of money to get you out of that situation, and or you're potentially going to pay damages down the line. So a TA can't make that mistake. And lots of rookie TAs make that mistake.
But Julie is a lawyer.
And frankly, again, learning the job versus knowing the job are two very different things.
Okay.
So, the fact that she has a law degree is great, because she knows how to research the law. But it's no guarantee that she will not make a mistake
That's
because
fair.
she doesn't
That's fair.
understand how all that works.
Well, don't we have town council on a phone call away?
Retainer.
Yes,
Yeah, we do.
and so,
Yeah, we do.
the kinds of support you can give her, town council, labor council, engineers that will, help with the DPW types of issues, the department heads themselves, who are wonderful resources. And I recommend you at least consider at some way, and it's a conversation you should have with Julie. If you decide to go forward and that's what you're gonna do, and you negotiate a successful contract, then I think you should have the conversation with Julie. Would you like that kind of support? Would it be useful to you? Because I think it's best to ask her. if she would like
I
that.
think we could dictate
Having
it,
said
too.
all that, my reflection is that if you appoint Julie, you will be very happy down the line. I believe Julie will, whether she gets her first job here with you, or she gets her first job somewhere else, I believe it is the case, based on several conversations with Julie, that she would like to be a town administrator. She would like to be the CEO, not the number two. She's strong, she's exceptionally bright, more so than most anyone I know. And I believe she wants to put those talents to good and proper use as a CEO, as the person in charge. So whether the board gives her that opportunity here, or whether she does it somewhere else, I believe she is going to be a town administrator, and I believe she's going to be an extraordinarily talented one. I think she's going to be a great town administrator. So having said all that, you know, my summary comment would frankly be, give her every support that she needs. Give her the opportunity, the understanding and the patience to understand that she may make a few mistakes along the way. But a year or two from now, you're probably going to have a pretty talented town administrator. And if the board is willing to do that, if you are truly willing to give her that support with all those tools, then I think you're going to groom a very effective town administrator, and you're going to have a really good experience. So that's my best I can do for you.
Let me go to Mr. Gasper.
So based on listening to everything Mr. Paco said, it's kind of in the league that I had talked about, I believe, in the first round, is, as I do believe Ms. Hebert, now I'll speak to her as an individual, is a talented individual, and I do have the utmost respect for Ms. Hebert, for the record. I think Mr. Pecos offered, and I think I said this prior to the board, is maybe having somebody like Mr. Healy with 40-plus years' experience, maybe bringing him in on an interim basis. We have roughly 5 months left in the calendar year. We can have Julie concentrate on the budgets, working with the finance committee as the assistant TA, have Mr. Healy in the office for the next 5 months, if he's available still, and he would like to do this for 5 months.
I haven't spoken with him.
His pay comes very cheap because of the Bristol County Retirement Board, so it's not a big expense there. It would be a fraction of anybody else. I think he said he could only make 55 Gs in a year.
That's correct.
So you're looking at 5 months, so you're talking about, you know, let's just say it's 30 grand, it's under that, but let's call it 30 grand. I think that's a very viable option to do. I think just taking Julie, putting her in TA, opening up the town accountant's position, and having that headache upstairs with where we are, the board is, and the town is with the budget process, it could be very detrimental as well to the town. I think it's going to create a bigger headache.
But acknowledging at a time certain, we've moved Julie into that position. Is that what we're saying?
If in 5 months, you know, we come to the conclusion that the board says, you know, hey, you know, we're good by working with Ms. Hebert and, you know, coming in and spending some time and, you know, shooting a breeze with her and everything's okay, and we talked to our department heads and the budget season goes well, and, you know, we're not, you know, spending $500,000 more than what we did the previous year out of the tax levy, and, you know, we're holding our grounds on budgets and everything else, and we feel we came out successfully out of the budget season. We'll just make an agreement with Mr. Healy for 5 months and to the end of the year and say, you know what, Jack, here's the deal. We're going to offer you an employment for, you know, 5 months, and Julie's going to be the assistant TA and town accountant and do this, but it's still going to lead to some problems because she's going to be, as she is now, filling the interim town administrator's position / town accountant, and we have Melissa doing the assistant town accountant / still going to create some havoc in those positions, in interim positions. So I don't know how Julie would want to work this out, if it's all possible to work out with Julie.
Well, here's, I think you're taking this in a different direction, but I'm not sure, but.
It's an option.
Yeah, I know, and I'm liking some of what you say, but I think that the transition I see, and maybe I'm saying the same thing you are, maybe you're not, that we provide support for 5 months with the intention that at the end of the 5 months, Julie would be the TA. And I would say also, as part of that 5-month period, while she's transitioning into the TA position, we're trying to find somebody for that CFO position, so that, I think it could take us 5 months to fill that position, based on how long it's taken us to fill the TA position, how long it's taken us to fill the police chief position, how long it takes to do all of this. I think the goal would be, we're guaranteeing to her that she's our TA choice. We're providing her with some support for a 5-month period of time, which I think is probably a good idea. But in that 5-month period, we're also trying to get a permanent person for the CFO spot. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm
And
saying.
if that's what you're saying, I
don't
that
want
could
the
work.
town being in this screwed up position where she is so good in the finance department that we end up now transitioning her into TA position. Look, I don't believe, I have any doubt that she could do the job with proper training, okay? The problem is I don't think that the town of Acushnet should be in the position where we're sitting there training somebody and then we open up a hole in our town accounting office. You weren't here, Mr. DeRoche wasn't here, but I was here. Mr. St. Jean was part of the finance committee at that time.
I was a
And
mess, I know.
It was Mr. Catino left, Alberta left the assistant town accountant position, and Kathy Doan left the finance director position. We brought in a temporary company that just made a big old mess up there, did really no good. Julie did come in, straighten out that office. She's great at what she does as town accountant. I believe that with a period of time, she could become a good town administrator, as most people with her qualifications could be, right? I mean, as long as you're able to give people some training, and I do have that belief in Julie. I've had that conversation with Julie. I'm just scared to death to open up that position in that town accountant's spot
Suggestion.
and be screwed there.
Go, Mr. Pecos.
I think there's a couple things that hang in the balance here that are very important. First, I think Julie needs to absolutely know that she is the board's choice, and that bringing in support is just that, it's support.
It's support. She's got
But
the
it is
job.
not a reflection of any lack
We'll
of
go to you
confidence.
next, Mr.
No, well, I agree with that comment, because we're gonna say, hey, Julie, hang around, we're gonna get you some help, 5 months, maybe not.
Yeah, no, we're
No,
guaranteeing.
no, that's not,
I think-
Mr. Cabral
So if I could
said
suggest,
exactly the way it was, and that was my
Let's
understanding.
go to Mr.
so if I could
Pecos.
suggest some concrete steps. First of all, I know Jack, and I know people who do work like Jack does, I do it. We don't care what our title is. You can call us chief cook and bottle washer, we don't care. So Jack does not need to have the title town administrator. So my suggestion first is that you negotiate a contract with Julie, and you give her the title town administrator effective upon successful negotiation of the contract. You can have a different provision with respect to pay for the 5 months, because you've got to support Jack's salary as well, whatever you negotiate with him. So maybe you've got a certain salary for 5 months and then a different salary for Julie on 5 months later when Jack is gone. But that's up to you and Julie, that's a discussion for you folks. But I do think it's terribly important that you give Julie the absolute assurance she is the town administrator, she is your choice, and that Jack is here to support her and to help her. And as I've been thinking this through and listening to you, it has an additional advantage in that Julie now has the clear understanding she is a town administrator. And if she was thinking of any other career moves, hopefully those are now obviated by the fact that she is now the TA here. Secondly, it allows you to move forward immediately with the recruitment of Julie's replacement, which is a significant
Which is
advantage, right?
Yeah.
And Jack is here to help with that, drawing on that experience. And I think those are significant advantages to you. There's lots of other ways you could do it, but I think what I just outlined is the absolute best way to do it, because it really makes it clear to Julie where she is, it makes it clear to Jack where he is. He's got a contract and it's going to end on a certain date, and that's that. There is no delusion about anything else. And by the way, Jack may say no, and if he does, let
And
me
you've
know.
got somebody else.
I got 2 other people that I think would do it, and again, not me, because I can't, if I'm gonna be honest with you and objective, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's the way it
But I'm
is.
picturing a retainage, or somebody, we could say we need to them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you Jack and I were completely unique. We're not. There's lots of people like us that have retired. The whole baby boomer town manager generation is just kind of, left in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of very talented people out there. There's a few right in this area right here that you could draw on. So Jack is the guy that we've been talking about because you met him, he's a talented guy, he's got lots of experience. If you're happy and he's willing to do it, I wouldn't look any further, but if not, Jack doesn't want to do it or whatever, there's other people out there.
We still gotta figure out the whole deal and how we
Right,
operate,
and-
how we operate that town
Right.
accountant's
So
office too.
I think
Julie.
it's, listening to you, I think you've come to a consensus. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty darn good solution. And I'll say to you what I said to you all in private. I've worked with lots of boards of selectmen in over 4 decades, and being on one, and I'm very impressed with the way this board does its business. I think you've done a very good job. I've watched your negotiations, I've watched the selection process. I don't have any need or requirement to blow any smoke up anybody's nose and be falsely flattering. So, I can be completely honest. The screening committee did a great job. This board is doing an excellent job. You worked hard to come to this kind of a consensus. Congratulations. I think you're going to be very happy with the result of this. It depends on some negotiations with a couple of people, but I think you've come up with a good solution.
Mr. DeRoche, were you next?
Well, a good solution. This is the first I've heard of this process, so
Yeah, we're learning as we
enjoy
go.
this. I enjoy this
Learning
because
as we
we
go.
are working out the bugs. And I do respect everyone's opinion on this matter. Bringing Jack and Julie, we're going to need to define roles.
Yes.
And that's going to be important. Who's going to be who? Does Julie say, hey, Jack, I need you to do this week? Is Julie going to be responsible for the budgets and that? Who's going to the meetings? That sort of thing. So we do have some hurdles
Yes.
that we need to define.
Julie, what I think was,
Yeah,
Julie's
that
Julie's the
needs
TA. Julie's the TA, assuming we vote that. A player to be named later, let's call him Jack, or her Jack, or somebody, whoever we determine, support role, and we need to define what that support role looks like, and what the compensation for that support role looks like. But that title is not town administrator, that title is
Whatever it is. Right.
whatever we want to call it.
Could be the ATA, Assistant Town Administrator.
Could be
doesn't
the
really
A,
matter.
could be the A, could be
Doesn't
the
really
assistant
matter.
town administrator, it doesn't matter. It could be, but someone that's experienced, that can provide support, and we decide whether that support, lifeline is the word I was looking for. That support comes in the form of being available for 20 hours a week via telephone, being in this office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 12, whatever we can negotiate with whoever that person is.
Oh, we need to negotiate that with Julie and see what terms.
We need to
she would
figure
be
out
willing to
Julie,
do the
yeah.
job. Maybe she
We need to
says,
figure Julie out.
I don't have any interest in doing this anymore and I'm all set. I don't want to be mentored by anybody. I just want to take the bull by the horns and, and try to lead. And that brings us back to
That could
square
happen.
one.
I agree, it could.
I don't
But we
think-
are also
But I-
offering her the town administrator, not to I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean,
we're
we
offering her
are.
the
We
town
are. I think,
administrator
I
position.
just, my concern was the experience, and I think that when you bring somebody else in 6 months is a short period of time, I understand that, but I just want to make sure that when we try to negotiate with Julie, I'm worried sick about that town accountants department. I've seen that go to hell already once. I don't want to see that happen again, right? It's not good. I've lived through that. It wasn't good. I can say that with experience.
The substantial advantage of having backup here for Julie, whether it be Jack or whoever, is whether you want to call it mentoring or not is really immaterial. I think it is, and I think Julie is, smart and humble enough to admit that there's some things she could learn from a guy like Jack or any other long-term manager. But think of it this way, if you think of it in no other terms. There's an enormous amount of work that's got to get done in the next 6 months. I'm quite certain, having been in this position before, having been in this position for you 3 years ago for 4 months, that Julie can't get it all done. It's just not possible for one human being to get it all done. So if nothing else, there's 2 people that are getting the work done for the next 6 months. I'm sure she's going to be very happy to have the support.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
We will see.
I know I would.
We
If
got
I
some
was in
things to
that
figure out
situation.
still.
We need, it all goes back to me about that town accountant office, and
So let's just big picture,
she needs to
big
give
picture
us a
conceptually.
big picture of what she envisions moving in that position and doing that and trying to do both and having this all happen. I mean, Julie's ultimately responsible as town administrator. You're responsible now for that town accounting's office, like it or not, that's what you are.
Big picture conceptually, that, just make sure we're thinking the same things. Julie's TA for a contract period of 2.5 to 3 years, or whatever we decide, right? With a player to be named later that is in a role supporting her, that may be a retainer, maybe a 1099, maybe an independent contractor to the town of Acushnet with a defined role to support her. And so they can sit in the TA's office. We gotta define that role, we gotta figure that out, but player to be named to do that role. And instantly say, Julie, task one for you is, we need a CFO, because the 1099 person, let's call that person Jack again, that person's gonna be gone June 30th, 2020, and when they're gone, we need a TA, we need a CFO, so you need to start finding that CFO now, but for the next 5 months, give or take, you're both the TA and the CFO, and you need to figure out how to manage all that using the person we're calling Jack to support you.
Yeah, and staying caught up in the finance.
Absolutely, staying
Right now, I know
caught
we're
up.
behind in the finance department, that's what's already worrying me, because she has filled in, and she was kind enough to fill in as the interim for the board and take that leadership role. No fault of her own, but she's fallen behind. The town accountant's office is falling behind. I've had numerous conversations about that, and that's what makes me not happy about it. I do not want to see that finance department fall behind.
She's
It's
doing
too
two
critical. I got it, I am not
she's doing two
faulting her. I'm
jobs,
just saying it's something that I specifically said I would not want to see bringing her in as interim and happen, and it brought more concern to me about this position.
Mr. DeRoche.
In this scenario, what do you envision in the big picture, what Jack's role is gonna be? If we're relying on...
We need to figure that out.
Okay, because if we're relying on Julie to get caught up,
Yeah.
to get everything in order, get things ready for the budget, are we relying on Jack to lead the budget to the finance committee now, and he's the point man?
Potentially, yeah,
You know,
potentially.
and...
In the town meeting.
Let me make another suggestion that I think will work for you. With all of Jack's experience, and with Julie's very substantial skills, and Julie, I'm sure, feeling a lot of pressure right now, having to have been doing both jobs and now having the toughest part of the season coming, I would suggest that you let Julie and Jack sit in an office somewhere for a couple hours and let them figure it out.
Figure it
and
out,
come back
yeah.
to it. Because I'll bet you dollars to donuts, they'll figure it out real quick.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Because Julie knows where she needs help. She has the title, she's the town administrator. There's no bones about who's the boss. She is. But she might just say to Jack, Jack, I gotta go get the general ledger posted. I gotta get the recapitulation sheet in, whatever. Jack, I need you to go write the town meeting warrant. I need you to meet with all the department heads and pull the budget together. And, we're gonna start meeting with the board to go over it and make sure it meets with the board's approval. She's gonna know where she needs the help. I think the only thing you need to say to her is, he's here to help you. And Julie, if you'd like to, he's here to teach you some things too. But that's up to you.
Give them a task, give them the warrants. Let 'em
Absolutely.
proofread the warrants, write the
Absolutely.
warrants, work with town
Draw
council
on his
to make
experience
sure
to
they're
learn
correct.
what he can show you.
Yep.
Or if not, use him as another pair of hands to get work done that you need to get done so you can do the finance director job and get caught up and do all the things that you need to do.
Making sure we can close our books for the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's what's important to me.
Yeah, because I'm sure right now, she's concerned. I mean, as I said to you 4 months ago, using a member of your staff to be the assistant is always perilous, because now you got one person trying to get two jobs done, and both jobs are 40-plus hours.
Yeah.
And so, something has to suffer. Something has to. It is axiomatic. So, I'm sure Julie will be very grateful that she's able to devote, more attention to the CFO job and blend into the TA job. And she could be able to direct Jack to do the things that she needs him to do in order to take some of that pressure off her. you guys are the CEOs of this corporation. You don't need to get down into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts, to tell Julie how to use Jack. She's very capable, trust me. Julie will be telling Jack exactly what she needs. I think the one caveat is you just say to Julie, we're giving Jack to you for 20 hours or whatever it is you decide, and use him, task him, because we're going to pay him.
Sure.
And we need to figure that out as well. We got a couple of contracts we got to figure out.
I think
So-
with Jack, it's real simple, real easy.
Yeah.
When I worked here before, I said, don't give me a contract, I don't need a contract, insisted on one. So, fine, I sign whatever you put in front of me. Jack would probably do the same thing.
Okay. Are we ready to vote something?
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you want to do, or do you want, as chairman, just have this discussion with Julie and say the board is in agreement on this?
Yep.
Is this something that you're interested in?
Well, I think to
Maybe
be in
she-
agreement, we need to vote to be in agreement. So I think a vote's appropriate to offer the, I think we all understand conceptually where we're going. We need to opt some contracts. I'm not gonna leave here and sign a contract. I mean, we need to agree on what the contract looks like, clearly. But I feel we should get a vote, and the motion would be to offer, we understand what the parameters are, but the initial vote would be to offer Julie Hebert the town administrator job in the town of Acushnet. All that other stuff we said before is part of it, but big picture, to offer Julie Hebert the town administrator job in the town of Acushnet, step
With
one.
support,
Yeah, all that stuff, absolutely, Mr. Gasper, absolutely.
But, I mean, and then we still gotta go into executive session to hash out contract
contract.
negotiations
Yep.
with her, and if we can't come to
we-
terms of agreement there.
We
then-
could do that tonight, we've got it on the agenda.
And then,
We could-
if
we
we
could,
can't do that,
Well, I mean, you can't.
We can have some
but
preliminary conversations, without
she's
her.
not-
We can have some preliminary conversations amongst ourselves as to
Yeah,
what we're
I
gonna
mean,
offer her. We can do
You
that.
need to set
it's
some
never
parameters.
been done the way we last did it. The board usually convenes, goes into executive sessions, discusses the parameters from within that contract that we want to offer for a contract. The board comes to a consensus. We say, yep, okay, we're okay with this. Mr. Pecos or the chairman of the board would then go to whoever, or we just bring that department head in, or whoever applicant in, and say, we'd like to offer you this contract, but the last time we did it wasn't the way we normally do it. I don't want to be negotiating against myself in front of the individual, so
Yeah, it was awkward.
it is
Well,
awkward.
let's get them, could I get a motion to offer the town administrator job to Julie Hebert with a contract to be negotiated later?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
Further discussion?
It's pending all of this.
Yeah, of course, yeah,
Right.
that's
No, no,
all
I
understood,
agree.
all understood. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Is that unanimous? Yes?
Right, if we all said aye.
We all said aye, it's unanimous. All right, I just want to make sure I heard, that wasn't...
We're all ayes.
All right, so we got
Based
some
on
work to
this.
do, but I think that is the only vote that's appropriate now, I think.
Question?
Yeah.
If it's the board intention to bring on Jack,
Yep. Person will call you.
the person you will call Jack,
All right.
there is this, we need to call and ask if he's interested or
Yeah.
if he's not.
So, all right, so let's, should
I think
we take a vote to that
further
effect?
vote is necessary. You can iron out the details later.
Yep.
But
Let's get a motion to...
He's Jack. It's John, but he's Jack.
Yeah, let's get a motion to authorize Mr. Pecos to reach out to a
Jack Healy.
candidate or a candidate or candidates. So I think you had somebody
We
else
don't
in
know that.
mind.
We're
That
saying we're
could be
comfortable with
if-
Jack, but we don't know the
if
other
the
guy.
motion-
What happens if we're not
if the
comfortable
motion-
with the
We'd
other
have, we'd
guy?
have to interview the other, we'd have to
If the
interview the other person.
if the motion passes.
Yep.
With the board's permission, it would be my intention to reach out to Jack.
Yep.
AKA John Healy, and ask if he would be interested in doing this function
Yep.
as you've described it. If Jack says no, then again, with the board's permission, I would reach out to somebody similarly experienced
Mhm.
and say to them, would they be interested?
Subject to our approval of that
The board would
person.
still have to meet with this person, see their resume, decide, yeah, this is just as good a person, and then meet with them and iron out whatever contractual relationship you want to have.
Okay. Could I get that motion? Do you have all that?
Right.
So moved.
So moved. I'll second.
A second, all right. Further discussion on that?
As long as we know that
Yeah, we gotta figure it out.
candidate number two, support candidate number two, we're not familiar with.
We need to, we'll bring them in, we'll interview them,
and
absolutely.
we need to
Yep.
make sure that Julie's,
I'm very hopeful Jack will do this for
Yeah.
you.
I am as well.
So that you're done, we can move.
Yeah.
I mean, he's retired, the
I'll do as
schedule
much
fits
arm
for
twisting
him.
as I can.
He offered it in his interview.
Yes.
He did.
He actually offered it in his interview, so I'd be shocked if Jack said no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Should we go into executive session? What do you feel? Just to talk rough parameters of the contract, or would you
Sure.
rather hold that? Yes?
Well, I
Well,
can't
It's on the
stay.
agenda, it's on the agenda.
Lisa can leave you.
Yeah, I can't
think
stay.
we
I
go
already
into
have the
executive
papers,
session,
but
excuse
So
have a
could
tape
I-
ready.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Could I get a motion to go into executive session under General Law 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator in this case, as an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigating position of the public body, as I so declare, and the board will not return public session, no need to return to public
Right.
session.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Gasper is a yes, Mr. DeRoche is a yes, Mr. Cabral is a yes. We are adjourning to executive session, not to return to open session.